An ongoing occupation protest conducted by pro-Palestinian students is occurring at Columbia University in New York City.
The protests began on April 17, 2024, when pro-Palestinian students established an encampment of approximately 50 tents, calling it the Gaza Solidarity Encampment, on the university's campus, demanding the university divest from Israel.
The encampment was forcibly dismantled the next day when University President Mino Ush-Shafik authorized the New York City Police Department to storm campus and conduct mass arrests, but it has since been restored.
The arrests marked the first time the university has allowed police to suppress campus protests since the 1968 demonstrations against the Vietnam War.
The campus occupation has been organized by Columbia University Apartheid Divest, CUAD, a student-led coalition of over 120 groups, together with Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, and Jewish Voice for Peace, JVP, which have often participated in New York City's pro-Palestinian demonstrations since the start of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in October 2023.
Another local group, Within Our Lifetime, WOL, has been protesting outside the campus perimeter in support of the encampment, clashing with the NYPD.
Much smaller groups of pro-Israel counter-protesters have also been present outside the university.
As a result of the protests, Columbia University switched to blended learning, incorporating more online learning, for the rest of the semester.
The protests encouraged other actions at multiple universities.
Pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel students have staged demonstrations at Columbia University during the Israel-Hamas war.
On October 12, 2023, days after the war began, the university closed its campus after opposing demonstrations collided.
In November 2023, Columbia University administration suspended SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, and JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, after they held an unauthorized student walkout, furthering conflicts between faculty and administration. The university claimed that one person at the event shouted anti-Semitic epithets.
That same month, students walked out of a class taught by Hillary Clinton in support of Palestine after her comments against a ceasefire.
In January 2024, students at a pro-Palestinian demonstration on campus were sprayed with a chemical which they alleged to be skunk, a foul-smelling spray usually used as crowd control by the Israel Defense Forces, causing various injuries.
In response, demonstrators organized a protest outside the university.
The New York City Police Department announced that they would investigate the event as a potential hate crime.
SJP and JVP published a report in which they stated the perpetrators were former IDF soldiers and current Columbia students.
In April, one of the perpetrators, who had been suspended the previous month, filed a lawsuit against the university under the pseudonym John Doe, claiming that he had actually sprayed non-toxic gag gift fart sprays that he had purchased off Amazon, further stating that he was doxxed in retaliation by pro-Palestine students.
At the entrance to the encampment on Columbia's East Lawn is posted Gaza Solidarity Encampment Community Guidelines.
Some of these guidelines are to not take pictures of people without their permission, don't use drugs or alcohol in the encampment, and don't engage with counter-protesters.
Speaking to the press is only allowed between 2 and 4 p.m.
Other signs on the perimeter say demilitarize education and globalize the Intifada.
Students created their own chants, passed out flyers that read, "Do you feel safe sending your child to a school which gives up its students to the police?" There is a buffet-style meal service with abundant food set up.
On April 17, beginning around 4 a.m., approximately 70 protesters sat in tents bearing the Palestinian flag on the East Butler lawn.
Protesters put up banners reading Gaza Solidarity Encampment and Liberated Zone. Activity in the encampment included a teach-in and film screening.
That same morning, at approximately 10 a.m., Columbia University President Englsih Shafik testified before the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, an event that had been planned weeks before. The following day, the Shafik authorized New York City Police Department Strategic Response Group entered the encampment to arrest protesters as Columbia University employees cleared the tents.
CUAD, Columbia University Apartheid Divest, stated that the university had dumped students' confiscated belongings in a nearby alley.
3 students were suspended, including Isra Hersai, the daughter of Representative Ilhan Omar.
After the New York Police Department appeared, a group of pro-Israel counter-protesters congregated to celebrate the university's response, waving American and Israeli flags.
A protest on 114th Street and Amsterdam Avenue formed, but dispersed to allow buses with detained protesters to exit.
Pro-Palestinian student protesters gathering on the opposite lawn, the evening after arrests.
Protesters on 116th Street and Broadway moved towards 120th Street after a man was taken into custody.
All of the protesters arrested by the NYPD were released by late evening.
The reinstated encampment grows into over 60 tents, with barricades isolating it from pedestrians walking through the university's lawn.
Because of the protest, the university cancelled classes on Monday, April 22, and then said it would switch to blended learning for the remainder of the semester.
The Columbia Elections Board announced that a referendum on divestment from Israel, originally proposed by CUAD on March 3, 2024, had passed by a large margin, showing that Columbia's student body mostly supports the initiative.
In the evening, the students celebrated a Seder dinner on the first evening of Passover.
Shortly after midnight, SJP reported that protesters had suspended negotiations because the university had threatened to call in the New York Army National Guard to clear them out, stating that they would not return to the negotiating table until Columbia rescinded their threat.
However, the university claimed that important progress had been made in negotiations, saying that Shafik's original midnight deadline would be extended by 48 hours, that the students had agreed to reduce the amount of tents, and that they would ensure that protesters not affiliated with Columbia would leave campus.
That afternoon, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives Mike Johnson gave a speech in front of Low Library condemning the protesters and calling for the president of Columbia University Englsih Shafik to resign.
Later, Johnson also called on President Joe Biden to deploy the National Guard to quell the protests. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre replied that such deployment belongs to the jurisdiction of the state governor, not the president.
Representative Gerald Nadler, an alumnus of Columbia University and the House of Representatives' longest-serving Jewish member, wrote that Columbia has an obligation to protect students and their learning environment. Columbia University alum and former trustee Robert Kraft, who founded Columbia's Kraft Center for Jewish Student Life, published a statement on Instagram: "I am no longer confident that Columbia can protect its students and staff, and I am not comfortable supporting the university until corrective action is taken."
The union representing Columbia student workers released a statement calling for the immediate reinstatement of all student and student workers disciplined for pro-Palestine protests and the end to the repression of protest on Columbia's campus.
Biden's statements, along with other responses made by prominent figures alleging the protests are anti-Semitic in nature, have been criticized by students at Columbia, including by Jewish students and activists.